What's going on, guys? It's Badger here. This is the first time I'm going to be uploading a video on my channel, so I'm just going to give you guys a quick introduction. I started playing Destiny 1 shortly after it launched back in 2014. I think I started playing in 2015, but just played very casual. I never did a raid, just kind of came on, played some strikes, did campaigns, that kind of thing. I took a big break and got back in. It's Destiny 2, probably around 2022, sometime during Beyond Light. I think it was Season of the Lost. And then I played on and off from that point until Lightfall launched in 2023. And then after that, I played pretty regularly since then and up until now. So I wouldn't consider myself an expert in this game by any means, but I'd like to think that I have enough knowledge to help some of the newer players and returning players with some reviews and guides and maybe some build videos and that kind of thing to help make your life easier when you're playing and just trying to have fun. And really, at the end of the day, that's what video games are all about. So let's get right into the video then. So for today's video, we're going to be reviewing some of the weapons that came out with the Edge of Fate launch just a little over a week ago. So mostly going to be covering just the free-to-play weapons and then also the weapons that come from Kepler, the new destination. So let's get it started by looking at one of the best weapons, in my opinion, the Mint Retrograde here. So Mint Retrograde Strand comes from Pinnacle Ops. It's a rocket-assisted pulse rifle, which is a brand new archetype that they just added with Edge of Fate. So looking at third and fourth column here, you got stuff like rewind rounds. Beacon rounds could be good if you really want the tracking, but I wouldn't really go for it myself. If you're going to have this thing for damage, you're probably going to want rewind rounds or Envious Arsenal. And just for general play, I would go with either Hatchling or Stats for All. And then fourth column, we got some more damage perks. We got Bait and Switch here. One for All can be good. If you're just going to hit some ads before you hit a tankier target, it's going to give you that 35% increased damage. Then you got stuff like Elemental Honing, which is going to give you a damage boost, but this is better if you're on a Prismatic subclass or something like that. Slice is a good utility perk. It's going to be able to sever. And Chain Reaction isn't bad here for ad clear either, so there's another option as well. Then as far as Masterworks, I'd probably go with reload speed. Honestly, I like to run reload speed on Masterworks on almost everything in PvE especially. So your god roll, I would say, is probably something like this. If you want to build into Strand, or if you're just kind of general ad clear, probably Stats for All with Chain Reaction. And then for something for damage, I'd say either Rewind Bait and Switch or Envious Arsenal Bait and Switch. It's going to be good to mix up in a rotation if you use Envious Arsenal with it. So next weapon we got here is the Qua Nilus II, which if you're watching this the week of July 22nd, Zavala is actually selling this at the tower in his arsenal. So this would be not too bad of a weapon to go pick up if you're a newer player. It's honestly not a bad Strand SMG. So the god roll that Zavala, or I wouldn't know if it's necessarily a god roll, but it's a pretty good roll. He's selling Slice Surrounded, which Slice is going to make you sever, which is going to cut the enemy's damage by 40%, I want to say. And then Surrounded, if you have 3 or more enemies within 15 meters of you, it's going to grant a 40% increased damage buff, which is, I think, the highest damage buff you can get from a perk in the game. So that's a very good roll. Other PvE rolls, I would say, Proximity Power you could probably use. It's going to boost your melee stat when targets are nearby. They don't really have any other information, so I don't know how much it's going to boost it by. Other good perks in the fourth column, you got stuff like Hatchling, which is going to spawn Threadlings on multi-kills or precision kills. Dragonfly isn't too bad of a perk if you're just looking for some AoE ad clear type of perk. And then Swashbuckler can stack up. It's going to give you 33% at max stacks as Swashbuckler, and it activates from increased damage from melee kills or kills with this weapon. So I would say my god roll for this one would be Slice Surrounded, and try to get a reload speed masterwork on it if you can. So that's it for the Qua Nilus II. Next weapon we got here is the Astyanax IV. This was an older weapon that is reprised, just for Edge of Fate. It's a solar precision frame bow. It's going to come from Pinnacle Ops. Should be pretty easy to get. This weapon kind of has some good perks if you're a bow user. You can get some double solar synergy here with Incandescent, Burning Ambition. Also got stuff like Firefly, which you could pair with Burning Ambition or Explosive Head. Firefly is going to give you reload speed buff, which I'm not entirely sure how that works on a bow. And it's also going to create a solar explosion on kill. But this does not synergize with solar the same way that Incandescent does. Incandescent's going to apply Scorch Stacks. Firefly is just going to deal solar damage. So I'd say one of those perks are good in the third column. Another good option would be Rapid Hit, which rapid precision hits are going to stack up your reload speed. It's going to max out at plus 60, but if you look right there, you know, 3 or 4 stacks, it's still a pretty good bonus to your reload speed for sure. Impulse Amplifier, I wouldn't really recommend this on a bow, but and then Successful Warm-Up is really only good if you're getting final blows, but you know, if you for some reason would be trying to shoot down a tankier target, this isn't really the greatest perk for that. So fourth column, we got Burning Ambition, which is new for this season. It's going to deal sustained damage. It's going to inflict Scorch. It's still pretty early, so we don't really have the testing data on how many hits it's going to take with a bow to actually start inflicting Scorch. We have Explosive Head, which this works the same way that Explosive Payload does on a hand cannon or scout rifle or anything like that. Not a bad perk for a little extra damage. Then we have Elemental Honing, which I covered before, but it's good if you're running some kind of prismatic build with this. So I would say really just dip into the solar synergies and go Incandescent, Burning Ambition on this bow. Next up, we got the Aurora Dawn sword. This drops from different portal activities. It's a stasis heavy wave frame sword, which might be one of the first of its kind if it's not the first. So I don't really use swords too much, but we're going to go over it anyways. So I'd say left column, you probably want Rime Sealer if you're trying to build into a stasis build. This is going to give you frost armor when you're hitting frozen targets or shattering stasis crystals. Flash Counter is not a bad perk. It's going to emit a disorienting blast, which is the same thing that blinding grenade launchers are going to cause. It just kind of makes the enemies kind of put their hands up and they're like kind of stunned for a little bit. But so it's going to emit that little disorienting blast when you take damage. You're close range to enemies. We got Proximity Power, which is another perk I went over earlier. We don't really know how much melee it's going to give, so I wouldn't really recommend this at this point. Unrelenting is going to trigger health regen. Could be good if you're really trying to slay out with this sword, but wouldn't really recommend that one either. Tireless Blade, you're going to get sword ammo on every other powered sword kill, so this one is good for ammo economy at least if you are using this a lot. And then we got Sharp Harvest. This is a new perk for this season too. Landing 3 light attack hits within a short time is going to grant you special ammo, which with the changes to the ammo economy, this could be a good perk to have on this. Going over to fourth column, we got Cold Steel, which I would recommend this for this sword. Powered sword hits are going to apply slow stacks, which since this is a wave frame sword, it's going to be a big wave that's going to shoot out in front of you, which is going to be really nice for hitting many targets with that slowing wave. So Whirlwind Blade on this sword, it's going to give you increased damage when you hit rapid sword strikes. It's going to be a decent perk to have on here. One for All, it's going to give you that 35% damage buff. So if you're clearing ads with this thing, it could be good. Vorpal Weapon is always a decent damage buff. It's a free 10% if you're using it against a boss. So not a bad perk. We got Elemental Honing again, which I covered before. And then Binary Orbit could be good on this. If you're running energy weapon that is, Solar Archer Void, and you're using this, it's going to buff the damage of this sword when you swap off. So that could be a decent option to use on this sword as well. My god roll, I would personally go with Rime Stealer, Cold Steel. Cold Steel definitely, and then I would say either Tireless Blade or Rime Stealer probably, depending on if you're on a stasis build or not, or if you really care about having Frost Armor either. Next up is a weapon that I'm actually really excited for. It's the Lionfish 4FR, which is a rapid fire frame stasis fusion rifle. Basically, it's going to be your replacement for Riptide. If you were a returning player and remember that, it used to be one of the best fusions just because of this perk right here, Chill Clip. This one I think is actually going to be a pretty good replacement for it because it does have some better perk options on it. So first off, left column, we got Rime Stealer, which I covered on the last sword too, but it's going to give you Frost Armor if you kill frozen enemies or shatter a Stasis Crystal with this weapon. This could be good, if you pair it with Chill Clip on this weapon too, obviously. Another good perk on this is Reconstruction, which is going to allow you to basically double the magazine if you don't fire it for long enough. It basically works like auto-loading, but will eventually get up to double its normal capacity in the magazine. So really nice perk to have on there, just for general play or damage. Lead from Gold is another good perk on here. If you're really using your heavy a lot and you're going to be picking up a lot of heavy ammo, this can be really good to have on here. Also, if you would be running a double special weapon loadout, which I typically don't do, but Lead from Gold really helps ease the ammo economy if you're using that. Subsistence, I wouldn't really recommend it on here just because you don't really use fusion rifles for ad clearing the same way you'd use a thing like an auto rifle or submachine gun or something like that. Looking at the fourth column now, we got Chill Clip, which is going to apply slow with the first half of the magazine. So if you have 6 in the mag, it just has 7. So for this case, the first 4 shots you shoot are gonna apply slow, and after 3 shots, it's gonna actually freeze the target that you're shooting at. So really nice utility perk, and it's gonna be able to stun overload champions if you get into some harder content. Second, we got Reservoir Burst here, which if you pair this with something like Reconstruction, it's gonna give you 25% increased damage, and enemies will explode on death if you do end up landing that kill. So pretty good perk to have. Binary Orbit, we don't really know values for this yet either, but there's better perks on here, so I wouldn't recommend it. Controlled Burst, this is like the basic go-to fusion rifle damage option, at least special fusion rifle, not linears. So this is a special, so this is a great perk I would recommend. Landing every shot in a burst is going to grant this weapon increased damage and reduce charge time. So if you have something like Reconstruction with this, and you really have a lot of ammo in the mag at one time, you're going to be able to really dump into this. It grants 20% increased damage and 10% decreased charge time for 2 seconds when you do land every shot in that burst. Elemental Honing, this is another option on here that's really not a bad option either, but once it really starts to pay off, you have to be at probably at least 3 or 4 stacks to get it to the point where it's even worth using over something like Controlled Burst or Reservoir Burst or even Chill Clip. So my god roll on this, general play, I'd recommend either Reconstruction Chill Clip or Lead from Gold Chill Clip. And then if you would be running a stasis build and you'd want to have a special weapon on it, Rime Stealer Chill Clip, that would be a good option for that case. But I'd say Reconstruction or Lead from Gold would definitely be better than that. And then my other go-to, I would say, is just Reconstruction Controlled Burst. It's going to give you a very consistent second source of damage other than whatever heavy weapon you happen to be using or your super. So this combo really does cook, I can't lie. Next up, we got the Mercury-A, and this is a high impact longbow that comes from, I believe it comes from Fireteam Ops now in the portal, but this is a whole new weapon frame for the Edge of Fate. So it's basically going to be similar to a legendary Wishender. So it's kinetic primary bow, obviously. Looking at the third column, maybe like 4 good options in here, I would say, for PvE. Things like successful warm-up. It's going to decrease that charge time, or draw speed, I should say, with the bow after you get a final blow. So it's going to help you ramp up your fire speed if you would be using this in a longer range, ad clear type of thing instead of a scout rifle or something like that. Rapid hit is going to be very similar to successful warm-up, but this would be better to run in something that would be a little harder, where successful warm-up requires kills, rapid hit just requires precision hits to boost that reload speed or stability also. Other than that, we got Demolitionist, always a good utility perk. It's going to give you 10% of your grenade back every kill you get with this weapon. Attrition Orbs, not a bad perk to have on here, but there's just a lot of better weapons you could use if you really wanted to use Attrition Orbs on a weapon, so I wouldn't really recommend using this, but there is a good combo for this. Fourth column, if you run this with Kinetic Tremors, and if you happen to get this weapon as a tier 2 with this roll, it's off my screen currently, but Kinetic Tremors on bow activates in 2 shots if it's enhanced, and also the Kinetic Tremors are going to be able to help shorten this time for a bow. It's 5 hits to spawn an orb from Attrition Orbs, so you think 2 hits with the bow, and then it's going to do 3 hits of the Kinetic Tremors. So basically every 2 hits with your bow, you're going to be spawning an orb, which is not a bad combo to have. Other than Kinetic Tremors in 4th column, the only thing I'd really recommend maybe Precision Instrument or Elemental Honing. Just because it's a kinetic weapon, it's going to get a 40% damage buff if you would somehow manage to get up to 5 stacks with the bow on. So yeah, my personal combo would be Rapid Hit, Kinetic Tremors, but if you'd want a little bit more utility, something like Demo Kinetic Tremors could be a good option as well on this bow. Next up, we got the Boomslang 4FR. This is a arc adaptive frame linear fusion, which is going to fire that 3-round burst. So some people like them, some people don't. This one does have the Vice Stinger Origin trait, which is going to be really good for damage phases and things like that. It's almost going to act like rewind rounds. So looking at the 3rd column, we got Rapid Hit, which that's going to buff your reload speed if you can hit those precision hits. Field Prep could be a nice perk to have. It's going to boost your inventory size. I think it also boosts your magazine size as well. Rolling Storm is kind of interesting on this weapon, but you kind of have to get final blows with it. So when you're talking about going into a damage phase or something like that, you're not really going to be doing it. So not the most useful on this weapon. Envious Arsenal, that's always going to be a really good perk on any weapon you're trying to have in a damage phase. Just swap to your other 2 weapons, and this is going to refill from reserves into the mag. 4th column, we got Reservoir Burst, which is only going to be good when the magazine is full. So it's kind of a tricky one, because looking at all these left column perks, you don't really have anything that's going to overflow your mag, like a Reconstruction or an Envious Assassin. So wouldn't really recommend it. It's only going to work for 1 shot. Successful Warm-Up, that's another kill-based perk, so wouldn't recommend that on here. Precision Instrument, I think, could be a really good option for this, just because once you get to that ×6, you're going to get a 25% bonus on precision hits. Vorpal Weapon is always going to be a 10% boost against bosses or vehicles. So 10% isn't the craziest, but it's better than nothing. Binary Orbit, that's another kill activated perk with your other weapons, so wouldn't really recommend it on this weapon either. And then last up, we got Jolting Feedback, which they don't even have data how it works on a linear fusion like this, so I don't really know how many hits it takes to proc, and I have not done testing on that myself. But this could be interesting just because you're going to get that extra jolt damage on the target. So for this weapon, I'd say my personal god roll would either be Rapid Hit in the 3rd column or Envious Arsenal with Precision Instrument, or Jolting Feedback, depending on how that works. So, I mean, ideally, probably want something like this on that weapon. Next, we have the Outrageous Fortune, which is a solar rapid fire frame heavy grenade launcher. This is going to be a replacement for something like a VS Chill inhibitor from Vesper's Host. If you don't have one of those, this is a really good replacement for it. One thing to note on heavy grenade launchers, you always want to try to get spike grenades if possible. That's going to give you bonus damage on direct impacts. So if you are using this for something like a boss, which for heavy weapons, that's normally what I recommend. Other than if you'd be using a machine gun, you're going to want spike grenades on this especially. Third column perks, wouldn't recommend Blast Distributor. It's really only good for splash damage. Impulse Amplifier. This isn't a bad perk. It kind of works similar to how Rapid Hit works on any precision weapons. Just going to boost your reload speed by 20, which is going to help it feel a little better, but definitely better option than this third column. This is the perk that I would definitely recommend for this. Envious Arsenal, like I said before, swap to your other two weapons, just shoot them once, and swap back to this, and you're going to have a full mag again. Stats for all, you have to hit 3 separate targets. Wouldn't recommend that. Incandescent, it's good ad clear perk, but you're not really going to be ad clearing with a heavy grenade launcher. And then Field Prep would be one that if you can't get an Envious Arsenal, it's really not bad just because you're going to get boosted ammo. So looking at fourth column, this is kind of an interesting perk, Burning Ambition. I don't think I have a roll of this weapon with this on it yet, so I don't know how many shots it's going to take to actually activate the perk, but it could be interesting just for getting that extra damage over time from the Scorch in a damage phase or something like that. Full Court, you do get more damage, but it's a 25% damage increase, and you kind of have to be pretty far away from your target to fully activate it. So not really the greatest. Chain Reaction, another ad clear perk. This is a damage weapon. You don't want to go with that. And then here you have what I would call your God Roll combo, Envious Arsenal, Bait and Switch. Bait and Switch is going to give you a 30%? Yeah, 30% damage buff when you swap to your other two weapons and deal damage with them. And same thing, that's going to activate Envious Arsenal. So dump the mag, then switch to your other two weapons. It's going to reload, and you're still going to have that Bait and Switch active, hopefully. So really good option, especially if you don't have a VS Chill inhibitor from Vesper's Host. Binary Orbit. Don't really know much data on this perk still, but at least for maybe something like a GM could be useful. But Explosive Light, this one I would say if you're using, if this is your GM weapon and you really just want to nuke a champ with it, then you'd want to probably go with like Field Prep, Explosive Light. But other than that, I'd say your God Roll here is going to be Envious Arsenal, Bait and Switch on this all day long. Next, we got this interesting weapon right here. It is the Theodolite Arc Micro Missile Frame Breech-Loaded Grenade Launcher. This comes from Pinnacle Ops. It's really an interesting weapon because it's our first micro missile frame that we have in the energy slot. It's like a arc version of Mountaintop. If any of you guys played during Into the Light, it's going to be really good for, you can kind of jump in the air and shoot it at the ground, and it'll boost your movement, make you jump a lot higher. So this is a weapon that's really loved by speedrunners, but at least for me, it's more just like you got a heavy target, you want to use this instead of a shotgun or fusion or something like that. Could be good for that. So third column, we got Eddy Current. This is a better perk, if you're running arc, just because you have to be amplified or sprinting, just to get that perk to activate. When you do activate it, then it's going to give you that 60 reload stat, which is going to really help reload speed, but not the best perk on this weapon in my opinion. Reconstruction, it's going to constantly reload the mag, which for this weapon, a grenade launcher, actually could be really nice to have on it because you'll get 2 in the mag instead of 1. So, you'll be reloading every 2 shots if you swap off of it and give it the time to reload. We got Blast Distributor. Could be a good utility perk, especially because this is a weapon you'll probably either use for ad clear or at least not boss damage normally. If you are using it as like a movement tool, I'd recommend Danger Zone, just so you don't accidentally blow yourself up while you're using this. And then fourth column, we got things like Volt Shot, which after you reload after a kill, it's going to give you that jolting round which can stun overload champions. So not a bad perk, but kind of have to be ad clearing with it actively to get it to proc. So not sure how that will be. Reaper's Scythe, this is a new perk that was added this season. So it reads multiple simultaneous final blows, queue up a stacking damage buff. Timer starts on next weapon fire. Final blows will extend this timer. Once again, still not in the API, or people haven't done testing on it to actually figure out, how big that damage buff ends up being. So we'll kind of have to wait and see, but this could be a perk to watch out for on this weapon. Elemental Honing. It's going to give you a big damage buff, but you kind of have to be on a prismatic build or something like that to really take full advantage of it. Rolling Storm. It's going to give you the stacks bolt charge. The more weapon kills you get with it, so not too bad if you're on Arc. Bolt charge is definitely a more useful tool to have. Or if you're not on Arc, this is a reliable way to get bolt charge. But I typically like to run Rolling Storm on primary rather than your special. And then last we got Frenzy. Frenzy is always a nice perk to have. You're just going to get 15% increased damage and max out your reload speed. So pretty nice perk to have on this for sure. I'd say my god roll would probably be Reconstruction, Frenzy on this weapon here on the Theodolite. Not including this weapon, but the next weapons I'm going to go over are going to all have the Bray Legacy Origin trait, which previously there was only 4 weapons that did have this trait. They're all of the weapons from the Vespers Host dungeon that came out with Episode Revenant in 2024. So this Origin trait is damage with this weapon generates a small amount of ability energy for the one that is closest to a full charge. So you can see hit from the Pyroelectric Propellant, which is I think it's a 600 RPM auto rifle. It's going to give you 0.2% Velocity Baton, which is the area denial grenade launcher. That's going to give you 0.365. The fusion is going to give you 0.425, and the chill inhibitor gives you 3.5. So we don't really know what this is going to be for these new weapons that I'm about to go over, but it's definitely a nice bonus to have. Just give you that extra little bit of ability regen that you might need. So our first weapon here that has the Bray Legacy Origin trait is the Shoreline Dissident Rapid Fire Void Sniper Rifle, and we haven't got a Rapid Fire Void Sniper in quite a long time, I believe. So was kind of hopeful for when this one would come out. Its perks are a little bit underwhelming, but I think it'll still end up being a decent sniper to use. So third column, we got Recycled Energy, which we still don't know what this does, and they say it's basically 0. So I would hold off on this until they actually address, maybe change what this perk does. Then Outlaw, Precision Kills greatly decrease your reload speed. This isn't terrible to have on a primary, but it's more of a PvP perk. And even in PvP on a sniper rifle, it's not the best. So triple tap, this is going to probably be the perk that you want on this. So rapidly landing precision hits will return 1 round to the mag. So then you see community research, 3 precision hits within 2 seconds. Each refills 1 ammo into the mag from thin air. So perks like this are always good just because they're going to be really good for your ammo economy. Returned round into the mag is going to come from thin air, unlike rewind rounds where it would get loaded from your reserves into your magazine. So this could be a nice perk to have on this weapon for sure. Shoot to loot. It's normally a pretty decent perk on something like a primary or a trace rifle or rocket sidearm, but something like a rapid fire sniper rifle, I don't think that there's a use on here for it. So explosive payload, it's kind of the same as shoot to loot. If this was a primary weapon, I could see it a lot more, but I really wouldn't recommend, especially on a sniper, just because they're crit based. It's going to take away a lot of damage that you could get from getting crits with a sniper, which is always what you're trying to do with a sniper. Lone Wolf is a PvP perk, wouldn't recommend. Then we have Ambitious Assassin. This is a perk that I have on one roll of the sniper that I was using a little bit earlier. And, if you're using it for something like a Nightfall or Striker, anything like that, where you're using your sniper at long range to take out some targets. This can be pretty nice because it's going to overflow on your next reload. So, say you start with 6 in the mag, you get 3 kills with it. Your next reload, it's going to have 9 shots in the mag. So, just going to help you have to reload less with it. But it's a kill activated perk. So, just keep that in mind. Fourth column, we got Demoralize, which this is another perk. It's like kind of interesting on this weapon, but this is also a sniper rifle and not a primary. So, not the greatest. Destabilizing rounds, it's kind of the same with Demoralize, kill activated perk, which on something like a sniper you probably don't really want. And then Closing Time, PvP perk, just going to help your stats. Adagio is another kill activated perk, so wouldn't really recommend this one either. Binary Orbit, I could see a use potentially, but once again, we still don't really know what it does. And then Precision Instrument, this is what I would recommend on this weapon, especially if you're using it in a damage phase for whatever reason. It's going to give you that 25% increase in precision damage at max stacks. So, nice perk to have. And then High Ground, that can max out at 25% also, but it's very situational because you do have to be higher in elevation than your target that you're shooting at. So that's another thing that you have to kind of keep in mind if you would go for High Ground. So for this weapon, I'd recommend Triple Tap, Precision Instrument. I think that's good. If you get one roll of it that has that, you're probably pretty good. You don't need another one. Next, we got the Ahab Char, and it is a rapid fire solar auto rifle. I think you can get this from pretty much anything playing in the portal. So it's nice. It's very accessible. Looking at our left column, Transcendent Moment PvP perk, but first perk that would be kind of useful, Subsistence, refills 10% of the mag every time you get a kill. So in theory, actually, correction, since this is an auto rifle, it's going to refill 17% of the mag, and this weapon already has 51 in the mag, so that's a pretty substantial amount, if you can consistently get kills with this weapon if you're in some easier content. Heal Clip, always a nice perk to have, just consistent healing if you can keep getting kills with it. Recycled Energy, kind of we don't really know what it does still, and they say it's basically nothing, so wouldn't recommend that. Perpetual Motion, more of a PvP perk. Proximity Power, this could be decent. If you're running a melee build, you are going to get a bonus to melee stat, which could result in a bonus to melee damage also. If you're over 100, you get that bonus to melee damage. Then we have Grave Robber, which is also a decent perk to have, if you are running something like a melee build, just because it's going to refill the mag, actually, every time you get a melee kill. So, help you reload less, but I would say probably go with Heal Clip here, just for general use. Adagio, it's going to decrease your fire, but deal increased damage. So, if you read their research on this, 10 range, pretty good to have, especially this weapon kind of lacks range. Then you get a 30% increase in damage, but only a 20% increase in your firing rate, or in this case, it would be a decrease. So it is going to result in a net damage buff, but then you are going to be firing slower. Binary Orbit, since this is a primary, I would say avoid this perk. Kill Clip, it's more of a PvP perk, but if you do happen to get one with it, 25% increased damage after a reload. So since it's a reload activated perk, running this with Heal Clip probably wouldn't be a bad idea. High Impact Reserves, just would not recommend really. I think this is more of a PvP perk at this time, but I don't really think anyone uses it for that. It's just kind of a junk perk they put on here so you can't get a good roll. Eye of the Storm, that's going to be a PvP perk. And then you have Swashbuckler, which pairs really nicely with Grave Robber. You're going to get up to a 33% increase in damage after you get melee kills with this weapon. So, that could be pretty nice on a primary like this. And then lastly, for your solar synergy, we have Burning Ambition, which this is going to work the same way that Jolting Feedback does. Basically, the longer you shoot the same target, it's going to keep inflict more and more Scorch. And this is a new perk for this season, so still don't really know how long it's going to take to activate, but definitely could be really nice to have on this. So my god roll, I love when weapons have solar synergy like this, so I'd go Heal Clip and Burning Ambition. And then for this weapon, especially because you're running something like Heal Clip, either run a Flared Magwell, or if you can get a reload speed masterwork on it, that could be nice too, just to buff that reload speed as much as you can, just so you can spend more time actually shooting the weapon. Next we got the Faustus Decline, which is a lightweight frame stasis sidearm. Sidearms are surprisingly pretty good at damage to red bar enemies, so this could be a good option to have, especially since it does have that Freytech Legacy perk on here that's not showing up currently, but you are going to get increased ability regen with this. Killing Wind, more of a PvP perk, wouldn't recommend really any of these three. So the first perk we're going to look at is Rhyme Stealer. Destroying a stasis crystal or defeating a frozen target. It's going to give you frost armor. So this could be good to pair with Headstone in the right column, or if you're just running a stasis build in general, could be good to have on here, definitely. And the other perk I would probably recommend in the third column would be Demolitionist. That's going to give you 10% grenade ability energy per kill. So that could kind of stack with that origin trait that's going to give you increased ability regen based on hit. So could be nice to have. Fourth column, really probably only a couple perks I would recommend here. First up, Headstone, Precision Final Blows. They're going to spawn that stasis crystal at the victim location. So easy way to keep frost armor up if you are using this weapon. Next up, Swashbuckler. Covered that on the last weapon. Max stacks could give you a 33% damage buff, so not a bad perk by all means. Sword Logic. This was originally just the Crota's End perk, I believe, but since then they added it to a lot of other weapons. So this scales based on strength of combatants that you can defeat with this weapon. So red bar is going to grant minimum stacks, which is going to be a 15% buff. Not too bad. And then if you happen to kill a yellow bar with this, it's going to give you 25% increased damage, which is a little harder with the sidearm, but it is doable. So if you're not looking for stasis synergy or like a melee build synergy, this could be a good weapon to have for that, definitely. Kill Clip, you don't really have any other perks in here that on the left column that you could pair with this, to get the benefit out of actually wanting to reload this more often. So wouldn't really recommend it, but it is an easy 25% damage buff if you want to do that. Precision Instrument, would not recommend on this just because it is a lightweight frame sidearm. It's kind of hard to actually hit crits with this, at least, multiple crits where Precision Instrument would really have an impact on you. So my god roll here, if you're running anything stasis, I would say Rhyme Stealer Headstone is a great combo. Demo Headstone could be a nice combo too on a stasis build, just because you'll get that increased grenade regen. And then kind of just like a general play kind of roll, I would say either Demo Swashbuckler or Demo Sword Logic could be nice. But really, I'm probably looking for Rhyme Stealer Headstone just to get that frost armor and keep that active. Next, we got the Jurisprudent high impact frame stasis scout rifle, which this is a 150 RPM. It is the second slowest firing archetype of scout rifle behind the aggressive frames, aka like the Dead Man's Tail type of cowboy shooting, lever action scout rifle. So looking at the left column here, we got Rapid Hit. Could be nice. It's going to give you that increased reload speed. Pretty solid perk. Rapid Hit at max stacks. It's going to give you 60 reload speed. We got Rhyme Stealer once again on this weapon. So something that's a little harder that you maybe want to sit in the back of the map and, keep your frost armor active, could be a good weapon to have for that. Next up, we got Enlightened Action, which I don't know if any of the other weapons we covered had this, but this is just dealing damage, improves your reload speed and handling, whereas, Rapid Hit is based on precision hits. So kind of depends on how good you are at actually hitting your crits, but Enlightened Action is going to give you, less skill ceiling to activate this perk. And at max stacks, it will go up to 50, whereas Rapid Hit would go up to 60 if you can land 5 precision hits in a row. So this one's definitely easier to active, and it does stack higher, but you're not going to be able to really activate that on something like a red bar that you can probably kill in two or three shots. So any of these other perks in the left column, wouldn't really recommend with it. They're all kind of PvP related, in my opinion. So looking at the right column, we got Headstone. Once again, going to spawn that Stasis Crystal. It could help you with some extra ad clear and stuff like that. Focus Fury after the magazine as precision damage is going to grant a stacking bonus to the rest of the mag, 20% increased damage. So, something like Rapid Hit with Focus Fury could be good, since these are both precision hit based perks. Other than that, we got Adrenaline Junkie, which this is basically the grenade equivalent of Swashbuckler. If you get a grenade kill, it's going to give you all 5 stacks, which is going to be a 33% damage buff. Explosive Payload, since this is a primary, could be a good perk to have, definitely. Just going to give you a little bit increased damage. And the rest of the perks, not really my thing, I wouldn't say. So I'd recommend either Rapid or Rhyme Stealer Headstone if you're running a Stasis build. If you're confident that you can land your crits, Rapid Hit Focus Fury, that could be another good combo. Kind of the general play, I would say, Enlightened Action, and then maybe with Explosive Payload or Adrenaline Junkie. I'd say that those are all valid combos to have on this weapon, for sure. These next couple of weapons I'm going to cover, they're all going to come from Crucible. So if you're not into playing PvP, you might want to just keep an eye out for these, just because some of them do have some pretty good PvE roles that you can use. So first up, we got this Pure Recollection. It is a heavy burst shotgun, which is, I think, only the second one of these that's come out. The last one was Arc. I can't remember the name of it, but it did come from Festival of the Lost last year. And this one is going to be a void weapon. So first perk we got is Dual Loader, which is basically just going to cut your reload speed in half on this weapon, just because you're going to be reloading 2 at a time. So not a bad perk to have by any means. Next up, we got Envious Arsenal, which if you guys are like me, you can see the obvious combo here, Envious Arsenal bait and switch. Other than that, we have Threat Detector. If you are using this just kind of as a run and gun type of shotgun, it's going to give you some pretty good buffs to stability, reload speed, and handling. So at 2 stacks of this, it's going to give you 55 reload speed. So definitely not a bad option there. Looking at the right column, we have a couple of void synergies here. Destabilizing rounds is going to give you volatile rounds on this weapon for 4.5 seconds after you get a weapon kill with this. So volatile rounds, very good ad clear perk, but most people aren't doing ad clear with a shotgun, I would say, especially not a heavy burst, just because you're gonna have to kind of control how fast you fire with this thing, because it does fire pretty fast compared to other shotguns. Next we have Withering Gaze. This is kind of just like a utility perk. You're gonna have to aim down sights, and it's gonna apply Weaken. So this weapon, it's not the most impactful. Head Seeker is a perk that normally is on a pulse rifle, and it's normally a PvP perk, but I will say, if you would be using this maybe for damage or just general play, if you happen to hit your first shot and it's not a crit, and then you follow it up with a second shot that is a crit, it's going to give you a damage buff. So definitely not too bad. And then last we have the Big Daddy, bait and switch, 30% increased damage when you do activate this. So couple rolls I would recommend here, if you are using this in a damage phase. Envious Arsenal bait and switch. Shotguns actually do a surprising amount of damage, so it's gonna be a good combo. And then I would say you have your general play type of perk, dual loader or threat detector. Probably want to pair that with destabilizing rounds. And I could even see a play for Headseeker on this weapon. Next up, we have the Stars in Shadow. This is a solar high impact frame pulse rifle that also comes from Crucible. Looking right into it, we have Heal Clip. Always good to have on a solar weapon. Very good synergies. Just an all-around great perk to have. Keep Away, more of a PvP perk, but since this weapon does have better range, it's going to be a lot easier to activate this, and is going to give you a reload buff when you don't have targets in close proximity. Rapid Hit. We did cover this perk before, but could be decent. Just got to land your crits with it. It's going to give you that reload speed buff. Next perk I would probably recommend Impromptu Ammunition. Ammo economy has kind of, been a struggle lately since the updates, which I know Bungie is doing some stuff to kind of make it a little less of a struggle. I could see this possibly being a good perk on here. Then looking at the fourth column, we got Burning Ambition again, which this could be something to pair with Rapid Hit. Definitely going to be better for big targets. Not sure how it'll be for something like Ad Clear yet, but we'll keep an eye out on it. Desperado, more of a PvP perk, but I could also see a play. It's going to buff your rate of fire by 30% for 6 seconds after Precision Final Blow. So this thing will put out if you do get Desperado. It'll be cranking the damage for sure. Sword Logic, we did cover on another weapon. The most practical buff you're going to get is probably 25%. So not a bad damage buff if you can kill a yellow bar with that. Since this is a pulse rifle, we do have Headseeker on here, which is more of a PvP perk, but I could see a play for it in PvE as well. Incandescent, this is your go-to solar Ad Clear perk. Just get a kill, precision or not, and you're going to spread 30 scorch stacks to enemies around you, or enemies around the enemy that you did kill with this weapon. So not bad by any means on this weapon. And then we have Kill Clip, more of a PvP perk, but could see some use for it in PvE if you're really trying to play into it and don't really like the solar synergies that come with this weapon. So for my god rolls, if you are leaning into solar, I'd say definitely go with Heal Clip here in the left column, and then either Burning Ambition or Incandescent. I would say harder content, you're going to want Burning Ambition just because you're going to have more time to actually apply Scorch to that target. But, things that are a little bit easier, Incandescent should do the trick. And then, if you're not trying to lean into solar, probably something like Rapid Hit or Impromptu Ammunition here. And then I would say either Sword Logic or Desperado. Either of those could be a good perk, especially because these are both precision perks. Those will pair nicely together. Next up, we got the Returned Memory, which is a solar rocket-assisted frame sidearm, which is a special weapon, as you can see. And this is the second solar rocket-assisted sidearm that we have got in Destiny 2. First being the Aberrant Action that came out around this time last year with Episode Echoes. So looking at the third column, we have Impromptu Ammunition, which could be a good perk to lean into, just because this is a weapon that does care about your ammo economy. If you don't have special ammo, you're not going to be firing this. So it can help you with that ammo meter, building it up and getting a special brick to drop for you. We got Heal Clip on here again, which is just going to be a good perk to have on any weapon, but this one in particular because it's pretty easy to get kills with a rocket-assisted sidearm. Impulse Amplifier, I would recommend, but I just think there's definitely better options in this third column. Talking about better options, Lead from Gold, it's going to give you 25% of your max special ammo reserves whenever you pick up heavy, so It's going to be, really good for ammo economy. Just an all-around good perk to have. And then last we have Blast Distributor, which for something like a rocket-assisted sidearm, I think it could actually be a play here if you are running something like a grenade build, just to really help buff that grenade stat. Not too bad to activate in this weapon. Adagio, I wouldn't really recommend, just because rocket-assisted sidearms already kind of fire slow enough, which I don't really think, and most of the time they're one-shotting red bars anyways. So next up, Desperate Measures, kind of works similar to some other damage perks, but will activate just after one weapon kill with this, and it'll give you a 10% buff for 7 seconds. But then if you do happen to get a grenade or a melee kill, and then another grenade or a melee kill, this could go up to 30%. So definitely one to keep an eye on here. Burning Ambition, it's kind of interesting on this, but I wouldn't really recommend it. It kind of depends how this perk works, because some perks in Destiny are a counter where it doesn't matter if you change to a different target, it'll just go, say it's like 3 hits to activate Scorch, so you hit 1 ad, 2 ads, 3 ads, and on that third one it activated your Scorch. But it could also be you have to be on the same target to do that, so I wouldn't really recommend it just because we don't know how that works. So I'd say that's a skip for now. Incandescent, that's always going to be a good perk, like I said before. So this would definitely be a good one to have on here. One for All, this I would recommend just because it's going to give you a pretty high damage buff, 35%, which you can definitely make use of on this weapon, just for hitting 3 separate enemies. And then Redirection, I think this is the first rocket-assisted sidearm that we've gotten with Redirection, which can give you, I believe it is up to might only be when it's enhanced. Yeah. So once you get one that it's enhanced, it can grant a 50% increased damage once you get those redirection stacks built up. So pretty good damage buff, just kind of for using the weapon and building up those stacks. So God Rolls, this one's kind of tough just because it does have a lot of good combos. I would say if you're going into solar build, you want Heal Clip Incandescent. Outside of that, Lead from Gold One for All would be a good combo, or Lead from Gold Redirection, or Lead from Gold with Desperate Measures, and kind of the same thing with Impromptu Ammunition. I could see Desperate Measures, Incandescent, you could still use it, you just won't get the healing from Heal Clip. One for All, very good, and Redirection, both really solid perks on this weapon. The last Crucible weapon that we're going to be going over here is the Solemn Remembrance Precision Frame Stasis Hand Cannon, which this does come from the competitive playlist. So, if you don't like PvP, competitive might not be your game mode. I'm sorry, but this is still a good weapon to chase, even if you don't like PvP. It could be a good one to have just because there are some unique things on here. And this is a 140 RPM, so, similar style to Hawkmoon, Thorn, all those exotic hand cannons that you know and love. Looking at our left column here, we have Impromptu Ammunition on this again. Could be good just for ammo economy purposes. Then we have Headstone, which if you're building into stasis, it's going to create those crystals. So definitely not too bad to have. Slide Shot, more of a PvP perk, but if you do like to slide around a lot in PvE, there's nothing that's stopping you from using this. Looking at our fourth column here, we have Firefly, which is going to give you that solar damage on a precision kill, and also give you 50 reload speed for 6 seconds. So it's kind of interesting just because this is a stasis weapon that you can get Firefly on it. You're going to be doing stasis damage and solar damage simultaneously. So keep away. More of a PvP perk. I'd recommend staying away from this if you are looking for a PvE role. Rhyme Stealer, we did cover before. It's going to give you Frost Armor. You can shatter those stasis crystals or kill frozen targets, so good pairing with Headstone here. Then we have Precision Instrument, I would say, is the only other useful PvE perk on this weapon, which if you're good with hitting crits with a hand cannon, you are going to get up to a 25% damage buff, so not too bad. So for God roll here, I'd say really there's only like 2 options, maybe 3. Impromptu ammunition with Firefly, just kind of general play, get the ammo economy, gets the boosted reload speed, and also solar explosions. Not too bad to have. Headstone with Rhyme Stealer, if you are on a stasis build, this is going to be the way to go. Hand cannons are very good for dealing with red bars. You can normally one-shot them, unless you're in some tougher stuff. So, good perks to have there. Then another interesting combo that I would recommend is Headstone with Firefly, just because these are both precision kill and also ad clear. You get a precision kill, it's going to spawn that stasis crystal where you killed the target, and then it's also going to cause that solar damage explosion and give you that reload speed buff. So personally, I think this is probably the role that I'm going to be hunting for, but I wouldn't mind getting a Rhyme Stealer Headstone roll either. Next up, we have the Precipal, which this does come from exploring Kepler. It is a void precision frame shotgun. Looking at the left column, we have Repulsor Brace. Going to be really nice. Give you that void overshield, extra damage resist. Pairs nicely with stabilizing rounds, but better combo to have on a primary rather than a special weapon, I would say. Reconstruction, it's just going to automatically load your mag, so you won't have to reload. Not too bad to have on this weapon. Threat Detector, pretty solid option. Going to give you 60 reload speed when you have 2+ enemies within 15 meters of you, which normally in PvE is pretty easy to activate. 1-2 punch, this is in the 3rd column, which is kind of unusual, but definitely not a bad thing to have in this weapon either. It's going to give you, it says 100% here, but they did recently just buff it, that it's a 165% damage buff, and they also say that it doesn't work with all melees, but they recently changed that as well, that now with something like a threaded spike on Hunter or any type of knives on Hunter either, or even on Warlock, your threaded needle, they're all going to get buffed by 1-2 punch now, which is really nice to have. Proximity power, I would just kind of look over on this weapon, just because if you are running a melee build, which is when you'd want that bonus melee stat, you're just better off to have 1-2 punch. Looking at the 4th column, we have the stabilizing rounds, which if you pair that with a repulsor brace is going to be a pretty good combo. But other than that, you kind of want this combo on a primary ammo weapon rather than a special, like a shotgun. Discord is actually a really interesting perk. If you just get a final blow with another weapon, every final blow that you get after you get that final blow, when you swap to your shotgun, it'll basically have infinite ammo as long as you're getting kills. So each kill is just going to refund you that one shot that you used. So definitely a good option to have on here. Swashbuckler, increased damage for melee kills and kills with this weapon. Could be a nice perk to have, especially pairing it with 1-2 punch. It's going to be a lot easier to get your melee kills, which will, in turn benefit this up to 33% if you get it up to max stacks. Slide Shot, more of a PvP type of perk, but I could see a play for it, just so you don't have to reload. You can just slide around. And then last perk that I would recommend would be Vorpal Weapon. Since this is a special weapon, you're going to get that 15% buff, which is pretty free. You don't have to do anything. It's just always going to be active, but only against bosses. So my god roll I would recommend for this, I would say first I would go with 1-2 punch and Discord, just because you can kind of, keep chaining these back and forth with each other. You get a kill with your primary, swap to your shotgun, then, say you get a kill with your shotgun, it's going to refund that ammo, and then follow it up on another target with that melee. Could just be like a really, in the mix kind of weapon, just for utility, help you get more melee kills, and keep that ammo economy going. Other than that, 1-2 punch with Swashbuckler could be a good option as well. And then if you have nothing better for damage for some reason, Reconstruct with Vorpal just really help you get a massive magazine to get that 15% buff on a boss if you do feel like doing that, which I wouldn't recommend. So that's Precipal anyways. Next up, we have the Giver's Blessing, which is also going to come from Kepler. It is a kinetic rapid fire frame auto rifle. This was a weapon I was pretty excited about, and Bungie, even in their Edge of Fate reveals, they showed this weapon a lot. It's basically going to be your Chroma Rush replacement. If you have one of those that you're using from Revenant, you can probably end up dismantling it after you get this. So, looking at the left column, we have Impromptu Ammunition. Still just going to boost that ammo meter, but wouldn't really recommend it. But, if you are really worried about ammo economy, it could be a good trait to have. Next up, Rewind rounds, and since this is a primary, this is going to be a nice perk to have. You're going to be able to fire for a very long time, and with something like Kinetic Tremors, it's going to be nice for helping you take down a tanky target, like a champion or something like that. Next, we have Demolitionist, just going to give you that 10% grenade energy whenever you get a kill, so not a bad perk to have. Shoot to Loot is an interesting perk on this weapon because Kinetic Tremors can actually activate this. So for, the target drops an ammo brick and, you end up activating Kinetic Tremors, you don't have to worry about going to pick up that ammo brick or even that orb. It's just going to pick it up for you, which is a nice utility perk to have on this weapon. And then Feeding Frenzy, if you are running something easier and you can really get kills, it's going to give you max reload speed at 5 stacks. So not bad to have here either. Fourth column, we have Adagio, which is going to make this weapon fire slower. It's not bad, but definitely better options, I would say, in this fourth column. Speaking of better options, Kinetic Tremors. I would highly recommend you use this just because the shockwaves that are activated by Kinetic Tremors are really going to help you take down tanky targets. So just an all-around good perk to have on this weapon in general. One for all, if you're not going to go with Kinetic Tremors and you want just a general damage buff, I would say go for one for all. Going to give you 35%. Adrenaline Junkie could be a good perk to pair with Demo, just because they're both grenade perks, and this is going to help you get your grenade, and this is going to give you a damage bonus when you get kills with your grenades. So good synergies there. Maxes out at 33.3%. High ground, I would stay away just because it's probably going to be harder to activate in general. And then multi-kill clip. This could be good potentially with something like Feeding Frenzy or Rewind rounds, and multi-kill clip does stack up to 50% damage buff, but I would say Kinetic Tremors is probably overall still just the way to go on this weapon. So my god roll, I'd recommend Rewind or Shoot to Loot with Kinetic Tremors. Depends on if you want the utility of Shoot to Loot or if you want to never reload like you would with Rewind rounds. And then for some reason you don't want those, Demo Adrenaline Junkie, not a bad combo, or Feeding Frenzy with multi-kill clip, all those will work pretty decent for you. Next we have the Ulterior Observation. This is a aggressive frame, stasis, heavy machine gun, and it is a 600 RPM, which is kind of a new weapon. I think the one that came out with the final shape, I think that was the first one. So looking at the third column, you got stuff like Subsistence, which is going to help you avoid reloading if you are using this for ad clear. Not a bad perk to have. Then if you want to go for some stasis synergy, you do have Headstone, which you can pair with Rhyme Stealer. Envious Arsenal is here, which is more of a damage perk, but you don't really have anything to pair it with here in the fourth column, so I would try to avoid this at all costs probably. Feeding Frenzy is not bad just because it's going to be really easy to get kills, but it's going to increase your reload speed, but then you are going to have to manually reload this machine gun, which you don't always want to do. And then the last perk, third column, I'd recommend, you have Demolitionist, which this could be nice because every time you throw your grenade, it is going to just full reload this weapon. So it could be nice to have for sure. Fourth column, we have Adagio, which is going to give you that 30% increase in damage, but it is going to slow down the fire rate. Rhyme Stealer, only would recommend either if you're on a pure stasis build and you can make it, just a buttload of stasis crystals everywhere, either that or you're pairing it with Headstone. Other than that, we have Killing Tally, which is going to stack up to 30% damage buff after 3 kills. Not bad at all to have on this. Then Dragonfly, which is going to kind of act like Firefly, but it's going to create a stasis explosion on a precision kill, which there you see deals 123 damage. Not sure if that's accurate since they changed and kind of squished our damage numbers in Edge of Fate, but it is going to give you some extra ad clear if you need it. So my personal god roll on this, I would say, would be Subsistence with Killing Tally, or maybe even better would be Demo with Killing Tally, just because then you have utility and the extra damage. But really, this weapon you're going to want to be using for ad clear if you are using it. And then another alternative, Headstone Rhyme Stealer, not bad if you are on a stasis build. Next we have the Sublimation, which is a arc high impact frame scout rifle. That is going to be the 150, so a little slower firing. Looking at this left column, we have Impromptu Ammunition, good for ammo economy. We have Eddy Current, which is going to increase reload speed when you're sprinting or amplified. Could be good if you do build into the arc synergy on this weapon, either with Rolling Storm or Volt Shot. We have Demolitionist, not too bad. As I've said many times, it's going to increase your grenade regen, 10% ability energy per kill. Another interesting perk, Sympathetic Arsenal. We don't really get this too often on weapons, but you're going to get 20 reload speed, and reloading after a final blow is going to reload your other stowed weapons. So if you do have, special or a heavy, it's just going to be nice to keep those reloaded. You can kind of just swap to this, kind of use it as a utility, just get a kill, and then, go back to slaying out with your special or your heavy weapon if you need to. We do have Shoot to Loot on here. So since this is a scout rifle, it might be a better perk to have on here. And then you do have Rapid Hit, which scout rifles are pretty easy to get precision hits with. So it is going to significantly buff that reload speed. Looking at the right column, we have Adagio, which I wouldn't really recommend, just since this is a scout rifle that already fires pretty slow. You probably don't want it firing any slower. We do have Rolling Storm. So if you want to build into Bolt Charge and get those stacks, or if you're going with something like Eddy Current on an arc build, anything like that, it's going to be a good perk to have. We have Volt Shot, which is going to give you that jolting after you reload after the kill. Just not a bad perk to have, and good if you're trying to stun overloads or anything like that. We do have Redirection on here, which, as I said before, if you get it on a tier 2 or higher weapon and it comes enhanced, you're going to get 50% increased damage when you do build up your redirection stacks. So not bad to have on this weapon at all. You do have Precision Instrument as well, which if it's enhanced can stack up to 30, but generally it's going to be a 25% increase to your precision damage. We do have Explosive Payload as well, which on this weapon is actually not too bad, especially if you pair it with Shoot to Loot. It's going to be a lot easier to pick up ammo bricks having the explosive payload. So this weapon's kind of confusing to say a definitive god roll, but I would say Shoot to Loot, explosive payload, a good option if you're just kind of using it as a utility perk, a utility weapon in general. Not bad to have just because it's going to be easy to pick up ammo. If you are using this as kind of your main source of ad clear, something like Eddy Current with Rolling Storm or Volt Shot, it's going to be nice to have as well. Demo, Redirection, I would say it's probably just a good general use. Going to be getting both the increased damage from Redirection and the increased grenade gen from Demolitionist. Next, we have Last Thursday, which is a adaptive frame. That's going to be that 390 RPM. This is a Strand pulse rifle. This one, we have got a lot of Strand pulse rifles lately. This one does have some kind of unique things on it. So starting off, third column, we have Subsistence. not bad by any means. Just going to help, keep that mag full, reduce the amount of times you have to reload. We do have Demolitionist as well as Strategist, which these both act in a similar way. Demo is going to give you that grenade regen, 10% on a kill, and then Strategist is going to give you 10% class ability energy. So not bad to have by any means. And then we also have Rapid Hit, which is going to buff your reload speed when you're hitting those precision hits on the target. Looking at the fourth column, start to have a little bit of strand perks. We have Slice, activating your class ability is going to cause Sever, which is going to give the targets a debuff, which I believe is 40% less damage to you when they are shooting at you while they're severed. So not a bad perk to have at all. We do have Hatchling, which is going to create threadlings on precision blows or rapid kills. Like the other pulse rifles before, we have Headseeker on here. Not going to be bad to have, if you can't find anything else, it is going to give you a damage buff with some forgiveness because it does buff it after you hit body shots and then the headshot. So Elemental Honing, going to be good if you're on Prismatic and you can consistently build into probably like 3 stacks. You're going to get 20%, get to 4, you get 30%. So not a bad perk by any means. We do have Frenzy, which is going to give you reload speed, 15% increased damage. Frenzy's always a good perk to have pretty much. We do have Dragonfly if you do want some ad clear. This is really your only AoE perk on this weapon, so not bad by any means here either. As far as your god roll goes, me personally, depending on what build you're building into, either Demo or Strategist with Frenzy I think would be a very good combo. Even something like Subsistence Frenzy if you don't care about the grenade or class ability energy. Subsistence with Dragonfly, Demo, Strategist, Dragonfly, any of those would be good. And then if you do want to build into Strand, you have Rapid Hit, which that's going to be based on precision hits. Same thing with Hatchling or Rapid Hit, Dragonfly. It's just kind of tough. Nothing really clicks too well. And I do think there's many other primaries that you can use over this last Thursday. But, if you are looking for a Strand Pulse Rifle, this does exist. So last up here, we have the Agape, which is a heavy burst solar hand cannon. Shoots at 257 RPMs, which is going to be that little 2-round burst on this. So very interesting. The one thing that you can kind of see with this is the reload speed's not good. So I would recommend either putting Flared Magwell on there if you have the option to, or a reload speed masterwork. Either of those just going to help make this weapon feel a little better. Looking at the third column for PvE, I would say there's probably 3 main options you could use. You have Heal Clip, which, as I said before, it's going to give you Cure. Just going to give you a nice heal bump if you are using it, especially helpful in solar build. You do have Pugilist, which is going to act the same way as Demo and Strategist do. It's going to give you 10% melee ability energy. And then we also have Rewind Rounds on here, which is not a bad perk by any means to have either. Just going to help you avoid reloading a lot less frequently, which with that low reload speed could be a good perk to have. Looking at the fourth column, we got a couple good perks here. We got Burning Ambition, which since this is a heavy burst and you have something like Rewind Rounds, for something like a tanky target, you could really just dump the mag in and, depending on how much Scorch this actually deals, you could end up causing ignitions. So it could be a pretty neat combo to have. You do have Incandescent, which is always a great ad clear perk. I'd recommend pairing that up with Heal Clip. This one is kind of niche, but Precision Instrument, if you would pair this up with Rewind Rounds and you're running a Lucky Pants Hunter build for some reason, I think this might be the only heavy burst hand cannon that has this, and it's going to be able to get a pretty significant damage buff from that. Firefly could be something good to run on this just because, like we said before, it does have that slow reload speed, so this is going to give you some ad clear, and it's also going to help that reload speed out, especially if you'd be using Heal Clip. Important to have a quick reload speed. Kind of similar to Precision Instrument. This is going to get a 20% increased damage with bosses when you're using Vorpal weapons. So Rewind with Vorpal could be a decent combo on a Lucky Pants build. Then lastly, we have Master of Arms, which scoring a kill with any weapon is going to give you 15% increased damage. And then if you get another kill with this weapon, you're going to get a 25% damage buff for 4 seconds. So God rolls on this weapon, I would say Heal Clip with Incandescent or Firefly is going to be, both of those are going to be pretty good if you want to build into melees and use this weapon. Pugilist with Firefly or Incandescent, either of those I would say would be fine. And then if you're going to go with Rewind rounds, I'd recommend pairing it with either Burning Ambition, Precision Instrument, or Vorpal weapon, which those are all just kind of build dependent, and I think they'll be the best on a Lucky Pants Hunter build. So that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you liked it. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions on any other videos you want to see from me. And I should be covering the weapons that are coming out with the new Arms Week event that's launching next week, as well as Trials of Osiris coming the following Friday. There's a couple new weapons from that could be good to keep an eye out for as well. So thanks for watching and have a good day.